Jari. Jari Palari from Taika 3D, the company from Finland, and he will present us application of additive manufacturing in orthosis and prosthesis. It is again one change from our agenda, but Deon didn't manage to join us before the break, so he will join us in the afternoon session. So we will finish this first part with presentation from Jari, and then we will have a short break as planned, 15 minutes, and then we will proceed. So Jari, please, can you share your screen? Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to present some of our work here. If you can just bear with me 2 seconds, because I need to show my presentation on another machine, and I'm just trying to set that up. Okay, I think that's better now. All right. So yeah, I think in some of the previous presentations we've covered quite a lot of the same ground as we will in mind, but I think this presentation is slightly different in a way that I will be diving kind of deeper into the design side of these additively made products, and the focus is really on how do we move this from academia, from the universities and laboratories onto industry, and instead of making products for research, we make products for orders, and could be that you have 20 orders a day or 100 orders a day. How do you kind of tackle that? And I'll cover some kind of specific things to the O&P industry as well. Before diving into the actual presentation, I'll just give you a couple of words about Taika 3D. So who are we? So we are a small business based in Espoo in Finland, actually not far from where Aalto University is. And we started about 3 years ago. We got 15 employees now. We have some based in the UK, like I'm based in Newcastle in the northeast of England, but most of the staff is in Espoo, and we have customers primarily in Europe and North America right now. And I'm going to cover some basics. Kind of, I'll probably can run through this first section quite quickly, because I think we're all quite knowledgeable about additive in general, and also orthotics and prosthetics, because everyone so far seems to be quite deep into medical applications of additives. So there will be some overlap. So my apologies for that. But I think the most interesting bit comes in the design side. So without further ado, so okay, orthotics are devices that support the human body, because there is an issue due to injury or some condition. And orthotics generally help you with the rehabilitation, or they prevent the condition from getting any worse, or they just help you in your day-to-day life. And you have orthotic devices just all over your body, and literally from foot orthotics, which are inside your shoe, to orthopedic helmets. So we really are talking about kind of solutions head to toe. Prosthetics, on the other hand, they replace something that has been taken away or wasn't there to begin with. And in terms of prosthetics, they tend to be more general, more complex devices, because you have assemblies of different sorts of components. Could be that you have a socket that is made custom, then you have some stock components that are attached to that. You might have a microprocessor controlled knee, all sorts of things, and it just makes it quite a bit more elaborate and technical in certain aspects. These two fields have generally been related, because people who train in one usually also train in the other, and the way you make these products traditionally is very similar. And you can see a few sockets here, and how you make one of these is very similar to how you make an orthotic device. So, having said that, I think we can dive into the additive field. So I've tried to find some examples of commercial applications of additive manufacturing in this realm. And this is probably not a comprehensive list, because this is kind of a fairly quickly moving field. There are new applications, new small companies popping up all the time, and even new processes popping up all the time, and it's quite hard to keep track of the progress. So on the orthotic side, the whole thing's basically started from AFOs and foot orthotics, because in terms of volumes, production-wise, these are the most kind of numerous products out there. So commercially, it makes sense to start there. But then other devices have been made, and some of the strengths of additive manufacturing in terms of complex designs and things like that have been utilized, but not always. But even metal processes have been used in orthotic applications. So a little bit more on that later. In orthotics, the main focus has always been the sockets, which is the interface between the human, the user, and then the rest of the device. Lower extremities, that is kind of possibly even more important than in the upper extremities, that the socket really fits well and works with that particular user, because the residual limb, the shape of that limb does not stay constant through the day. It's the shape is always different, and it can change, it can swell as the day goes by. And also in that, we can integrate into these sockets, we can integrate attachments to the rest of the orthotic prosthetic device. Also, some interesting developments have been with the feet, where basically you can optimize through finite elements analysis the properties of the foot and the response when you walk for that particular person and their body weight, and these are optimized case by case. So you have some engineering elements in this field also. There aren't many cases where that happens, but this is one of them. And obviously there are these kind of nice stories about amputees, and then even kind of design design applications where really the freedom to design anything you like, more or less, has really come to play. And you have even kind of, so typically I do like this example because usually the socket and your ankle is connected with just a simple aluminium tube. But in this particular case, someone has actually made this kind of an exoskeleton type approach with metals. And while this is probably quite expensive, prohibitively expensive for most applications, but it's if you can afford something like that, I think that's really cool. Obviously, we in the last two presentations, we saw many examples of how additive technologies are used in prosthetic applications, where the prosthetic device actually goes inside the body, like we saw on this presentation. So I'll not dive into that at all. There are also a lot of dental applications out there, but I'll focus on the orthotic prosthetic external devices here. So in terms of the processes, additive processes used in this sector, the polymer processes are dominant because they've been readily available and they're a lot kind of cheaper than pretty much any of the other alternatives. And traditional SLS has been the king of the hill until because that was kind of that's provided all the design freedom that you could ask for, reasonable material properties, reliability, and all that. But then HP came along with the multi-jet fusion process and has taken quite a lot of that market, especially in commercial applications. And now Ceresys this year, Ceresys has launched the SAF process, and we will see how that competition develops. But if you want to make these devices, all of these processes are in my opinion valid. Materials wise, you've got the nylons, PA12, PA11, and in some cases also TPU, but not so much, because usually, at least in orthotics, what you need to do is you need to usually realign the body in some way, and you need usually a rigid body to do that, because the forces, for example, in an insole application, are so high. It is your body weight times 1.5 times 2.5, whatever. So the soft material will just not do. It will be in your shoe and it will be comfortable, but it will not realign anything. So you do need a bit of rigidity, and hence nylon has been the go-to material there. And there are some others coming, but the selection there isn't huge at this time, unfortunately. So maybe the system providers can work on that a little bit. Some people have successfully used FDM systems, desktop systems for these products, but the issues there are the usual FDM issue: reliability, capacity, and some people can make it work, but in generally speaking, people go with the higher end processes, because if you need to make a component 3 times over to get it right, then and you have this problem 20 times a day, it's not really sustainable commercially. And finally, as I mentioned previously, there are new processes coming all the time, so this is not a comprehensive review on that, but I think these are the main systems used. I think I'm preaching to the converted here a little bit, but so why additive is in some ways better than these traditional processes. And basically, it all comes from the digital nature of the design and manufacturing of the components. Because kind of what you see is what you get, so you know exactly what you design, however complex that shape is. That is what you get exactly, and without anything in between, no tooling, no manual kind of steps. And so complexity is relatively easy. Obviously, there are limitations. Obviously, also controlling your design and the features in that design is possible, and it's very easy. And again, because it's all digital, you know that kind of a particular shape here is going to be pretty much that exact shape in the final product. And you can then kind of use that complexity to place different external components or just different features. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then obviously these kind of personal designs become possible. They were possible traditionally, but nobody actually did them because it's too expensive, too time consuming. And like in this, for example, in this particular case, we put in a temperature sensor in an insole, and that was successfully used to monitor just real-time temperatures over a long period of time of a group of patients. But generally speaking, in clinical practice, these kind of systems are not used. Just some more examples of this kind of complexity that can be used. So you can obviously apply different perforations on products. You can add different, like here you have one thickness, here you have another thickness on the shell to create different responses, different kind of corrections that product can give you. So if you imagine that you walk on a flexible shell versus you walk on a reinforced shell, that shell will force you to walk in a different way, and it will correct possibly a musculoskeletal anomaly or some issue, or possibly it can be used to shift pressures around the plantar surface of the foot to avoid inflammation or like ulcerated locations and things like that. Also, kind of these kind of cushioning structures can be created. So even if your base material is essentially hard plastic, can you create kind of more compliant, like tactile feeling while still using that same material? And the answer is yes, within certain limitations. And you can then go kind of wild with different ideas in terms of molding and inserts, and because you kind of get that complexity for free. So anyway, in a way, your imagination is the limit, but you just need to take into account the constraints that the systems can give you. So are these devices any good? And some people have done some research and done some comparisons. And unfortunately, a lot of this research is in-house and never published, but some of it is. So here I can show you some fatigue testing. So you have an orthotic device here. It's an insole, and it's just been clamped on this machine. That will give you repeated stress testing, or fatigue testing over a number of cycles, hundreds of thousands of cycles, and while there aren't any standard tests like this, you can kind of at least in-house establish whether your product is safe for prolonged use. and obviously this kind of material will help you convince your customers that yes, you should buy my product. Some more testing of the same product. So as mentioned, there aren't standard tests, so you have to kind of make it up as you go along to some degree. And usually people go with just kind of basic rotations or kind of displacements, and it's all doable. And hopefully there will be some standards in this field in the future. In the prosthetics field, you do have certain standards, but orthotics is kind of lagging behind, unfortunately. Then if we look at some published research, this is an old case, but I like it because it highlights the point quite well. So here we have a prosthetic socket with two compliant sections in different parts of that device. And this group in Texas, they measured a conventional design without these compliant sections, and then two different kind of compliant kind of concepts or designs. And they measured the pressure between the skin and the shell of the orthosis. And as you can see here, from these graphs, that's the difference between conventional design and these two new designs. And the difference is quite radical, and this is quite impressive and useful, considering that these kind of high pressure areas are usually associated with irritation or pain or skin issues. So kind of as a concept, I think this is quite successful in demonstrating the strengths of additive manufacturing in this particular application. However, if you look at this, this was published in 2007, and to date you cannot buy a prosthetic with these kind of features. So in all this time, the industry has not kind of picked up on this and actually kind of commercialized something like this, which is unfortunate in my opinion, because it's because the more comfortable these devices are, the better the quality of life it is for people using these prosthetics kind of every day for the rest of their lives usually. So I think the industry has a moment here to kind of examine that are we doing the best job that we could. Another example is this is an insole project in Glasgow, also finished some time ago, and here there was basically different designs with a standard foot orthotic, an FDM manufactured orthotic, and an SLS, so laser sintered, and this is used for precision modeling orthotic designs. And the conventional design was a milled polypropylene device, and kind of superficially these are very similar orthotics, but in terms of the process that you had when you kind of start from the patient examination and end up with the final device ready to be fitted, the main difference is the use of 3D scanning and then obviously 3D printing. So you could argue that because of 3D scanning, the fit in the additive devices was already kind of through the scanning better than with the standard device. And in terms of kind of the efficacy, so these are patient reported efficacy, and I believe this was symptom reduction. So in terms of the patient perception, the additive devices were considerably more effective than the standard device. And in terms of symptom reduction, the difference isn't so clear, but you could argue that there is an improvement there, especially with the SLS devices. But while there are a number of these trials out there, kind of testing out different designs and different products, they tend to be small scale trials, and the results from one trial are not always comparable with the results of another trial, because everybody's kind of looking at slightly different things. So to get kind of a good, statistically powerful evidence that yes, additive is as good or better than traditional methods, the data just kind of isn't there yet. So we need more clinical trials to do that. But it certainly can be done. I think that's the take-home message here. Okay, let's look at the design. And in terms of, like we've seen this already before, that if you want to design bespoke medical devices, first you need patient data to come in, the person-specific geometry, for example. Then you need to do something with that, which is the design parts, analysis, whatever. And then you basically export that design, you manufacture it, and then you can do various post-processing things to that. And making parts from STL files and then doing industrial post-processing, this is something that service providers do all day, every day, all around the world. Like there's no magic happening here. So I'll not talk about that too much. I'll focus on the two first stages, two initial stages. So traditionally in O&P, we have the plaster cast, where you basically just take plaster impression of whatever you need to take the impression of. You then take that off the patient, you fill that with plaster, and then you have this kind of positive, which is kind of a reproduction of the patient anatomy. And then you can go about scanning this, and then you have your input in your digital process. So you kind of have this intermediary process. Obviously, you can scan the residual limb or foot or back or what have you directly. And to do that, you usually have a handheld scanner. So you've got these older systems which cost as much as a car 20 years ago, to technically much more superior systems that still cost as much as a car, to kind of these dedicated scanners for dedicated applications, such as kind of fully weight-bearing kind of foot scanners. And if we move forward in time, we basically have now a much lower cost systems in the shape of the structure scanner, which basically just a few years ago kind of took that kind of low cost scanning markets and just kind of became the biggest show in that town. And they're now in their kind of second generation device. But the latest, and some would say greatest, let's say development in that field is using the Face ID scanner in your phone. And as from the video, this is from Apple. You can see that the resolution is pretty good, and it has been there are applications that you can buy that use this technology already. The problem is obviously that the camera is on the wrong side of the phone if you want to scan somebody else, and there aren't easy walkarounds to that. But I'm sure the same technology will be available on probably some kind of standalone devices pretty soon. But those are just some examples of how you can get your patient data into your design system. Yeah, there's photographic systems out there as well, because if you have a reference object here that you know that one dimension, then you can analyze your picture data, and you can then measure certain things using that reference, like a foot width, 4 foot width here, you can measure that. And then you got potential pressure data, but that's not really used very much because you need to really go to a clinic that might not have these kind of expensive specialist systems. But pressure data would be interesting to use in a broader scale. Imaging data can be used as well, and as we've kind of seen from previous presentations, but it's not really done very often because obviously you have to go and have your imaging data taken, and it takes time, and it is can be quite expensive. Depends on where you live. So we've kind of looked at the imaging side. So now let's do something with that kind of incoming data. So first we need to get that into our design system. We need to clean it up, and we need to visualize it to the user in some way. And then we need to basically check the orientation that kind of let's say my design system, coordinate system, and the coordinate system of that scan, they match. And then I can start to do corrections in the position and alignment. So for example, here we can see two conditions, rear foot varus and valgus, that if you want to make an orthotic device to correct these issues, you basically would need to kind of keep this part constant, and then you grab the foot and then you rotate it that way, while keeping an accurate shape in the ankle. And then obviously for the valgus, you do the reverse, and then that would be the base of your orthotic device. So it is corrected to a 90-degree angle. And in some cases, you can't do that all the way. That, for example, the person doesn't tolerate a correction that big. So you need to know how much you can correct. But that is kind of the traditional way of doing it. And that kind of has to be reproduced in the digital process. And then you have basically something like this, which is kind of your scan in the correct position, correct orientation. It's fixed, it doesn't have holes and all that. And then you basically have two different options to create then the device. One is basically you have a pre-designed device that you will then align with this, and then you kind of morph that template onto that patient shape. And the other one is basically, so that was option 2, and option 1 is that you create kind of a trimline on this, and you create a thickness to that. And you can bear with me for 2 seconds. I can show you some of that. Okay, so here we have a 3D scan. Well, 2 3D scans actually, left and right, of a foot. And as you can kind of see that the scan is not necessarily perfect in terms of quality. Like there's a bit missing around the heel there, and but there should be enough here. And if we kind of generate an orthotic device around that, we can basically make a trim line around that device. And then we basically just can extrude that so that we have a thickness. We can kind of round the corners off, and we can then start to apply also different features. So we have metatarsal pad here, for example. And that's kind of an alternative method to creating device, and that is usually a better method if you want a really close fit. And I'll just finish that. Okay, so there's kind of those are two main approaches on how to kind of create a design system. And here's a little another demo of a kind of a more conventional system where you basically take a template shape and then you start modifying that to kind of fit your input scan. And you have different kind of shapes of templates you can start off with, and then obviously different methods of manipulating those shapes. But the question is that kind of main issue with these approaches is that you actually have to do it manually, and the other one can be automated. So if you're getting that kind of 20 orders a day, 100 orders a day, then do you want to do those manually, like in conventional CAD, or do you want to do that automated? So you have that input data that comes in that is cleaned up and oriented correctly, and then you generate the surface there directly without manual involvement, and then you add to that these various features that kind of correct that musculoskeletal issues that person has. So that's kind of a key issue when you want to scale the design of these kind of products. So yeah, you're consistent. You can eliminate a lot of repetition in the manual design because you're basically doing the same product over and over again, just on a different design, different geometry. So if you can tell the computer how to do this, then you don't have to click the same buttons 100 times every day. And then you can basically, if you're confident in the system, you can basically just build that into the back end and let that system run as an engine that will just process the incoming data and just give you the final product. And then the designer only needs to validate that design. So you can speed things up a lot, and again, you remove a lot of that manual adjustment, manual tweaking, just like you do when you move from a craft kind of manual process to a digital process. And now that we have our kind of final design finished, and we are still in the digital realm, we can then start to really do something cool and interesting, which is kind of the O&P industry has traditionally been a craft industry, and it relies on people with skill in their hands, how they make these things kind of from plaster and plastics. Engineering principles haven't usually kind of gained much ground in this field. However, now I think there's a really good opportunity to try and improve practices in this industry, and through this kind of digital design and manufacturing, try and kind of push those engineering principles into this field. So FE analysis is kind of obviously one thing that can be done. So you can apply generic loads or personalized loads on devices, and then the analysis tools will tell you the deflection and the load distribution there, and you can then use this output to optimize the device, for example, for lighter weight, or to give you certain kind of responses under certain kinds of loads. And this is sadly not a reality in the industry in large scale at this time, but we are certainly pushing towards that direction, and there are some research groups also doing that. here's another example of an analysis for an AFO product. And for example, if you can see that you have very high loads here around the ankle, then that can advise you that, okay, I need to probably take that trim line a bit further back, or maybe I need to reinforce that if trim line absolutely has to be here, or maybe I need to look at a different kind of device, possibly a device with a hinge. Before you had these analysis methods, you just had to know that from experience. Another very powerful tool is dynamic musculoskeletal analysis that can give you, based on motion data and pressure data, can give you very accurate loads on various parts of the anatomy. And because the input data requirements, I would say that musculoskeletal analysis isn't realistic in the near future for everyday use, but I would say that it is a very powerful tool for product development of O&P products and different designs. And especially if you combine this with the FE analysis, then you know exactly what happens in the person, you know what happens in the device as well. And last point here, maybe but not the least, which is the complexity in design. And we've seen some samples here, samples also in previous presentations, that you can really kind of go wild here. And usually the product is as good or better with these additions. And obviously, kind of you can get the patient a little bit excited about the product as well. They want to show it off and things like that, which is the exact opposite what it used to be traditionally, where people want to hide the fact that they have a prosthetic, or that they're wearing an orthotic device. So hopefully that will have broader benefits other than having, let's say, a lighter product or a more breathable product. And again, kind of here we see a good example. I think here is just a show, but you could kind of imagine using structures like this in together with FE analysis to really kind of have a denser mesh in one location, a looser mesh in another location, and really kind of put material exactly where you need that material, and have a really optimized device that way. So that's kind of the overall process. As I mentioned previously, this kind of previous kind of just STL exports and part manufacturing and kind of cleaning up parts, dyeing parts, sterilization, doing various surface processing things. This is just kind of industrial stuff. So in a way, this is not so interesting, at least to us, than the design side, because kind of this is where you make all the relevant decisions, whether that device is kind of going to be something more than just a simple shell. Having said that, I do have to mention that whether the device actually does what it's supposed to do also relies on the input from the clinician. Primarily the prescription, not necessarily the geometry. They need to know how to treat that patient. So technology does not solve every single problem here. It is still the medical practitioner, like I'm sure with surgical applications also. If the kind of the surgeon needs to know exactly what they want to do before this beautiful technology can be of any advantage. So collaboration with engineers and medical people is kind of is key. So in summary, the O&P industry is starting to utilize additive products, but still the vast majority is being produced through traditional means. and the key there, how do we kind of improve the adaptation of additive, because you can create better products, is really to have innovation and and to be able to scale that innovation to industrial production. So there we get to the design efficiency. So if it takes you a day to do one design, then that's going to be a very expensive design, and that idea is maybe not so scalable. But if you can do 100 designs a day, then okay, you're in business. I think that's all I've got, and I just want to show you this old Gilbert cartoon, because I think it's still cringy, if not funny. So yeah, I don't know if we have any questions, but thank you for your attention, and thank you again for inviting me.
Ilya, thank you very much for very interesting presentation. We have, as I know, a few persons who are dealing directly with the production of prosthesis and orthosis, so I think that they found something new and inspiring for their future work, and probably there will be some questions. And thank you very much again for your presentation. So if we have maybe one or two questions now, I'm asking attendees to put a question. If not, now it's 12:47, so I should say it's 12:40. We will have a short break of 15 minutes, and then we will proceed with presentation from Professor Dejan Deber from Central University of Technology with the presentation about development of additive manufacturing ecosystem project. But Professor will present more about this project after the short break. So we will be together in 12:55, 5 minutes to 1, according to our Central European time. Thank you very much, and have a short rest, and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.